Hi, I'm Michael Clark and welcome to the road trip. Today on the road trip, we're talking numbers, and if there's one favorite number that I've got on my bucket list, it has to be the 4 Series Coupes from BMW. And yes, at BMW, you call them coupes. Well, let's get back to what this car is about, because a lot of people who may be uninitiated may think that the 4 Series Coupe is nothing but a two-door version of the 3 Series. And that's really where you start getting it wrong, because everything has been massaged on this particular vehicle to make it work with this chassis. It's very purpose built, not to mention the fact that the one that we're driving today is the 435i with the xDrive, so it's perfect for these lovely spring temperatures that we get in Winnipeg. But the other thing that really got my attention was the amount of technology here to, how do I put this? This car can make anybody a good driver. That's exactly how well it's put together. And I think that's why a lot of people who are thinking about something in the luxury performance class are wanting to give BMW the once over. Now, we're going to get into all that technology, and believe me, I don't even know if we have enough time today to tell you everything you need to know, but there's definitely some features here that you're going to appreciate whether it's rain or shine. Now, if you've got thoughts, feelings, or questions about anything automotive, send an email to steelbeltedmind@gmail.com. Buckle up, it's time for the road trip. Well, it's time to take a look under the hood, and you know, before we do, I'd like to point out what I just did, and that was actually taking the hood release, pulling it twice, and then all you have to do is this. That's right, no messing around trying to find a release. So under the hood, we've got the twin turbo Power 6, and it's got 306 horsepower and 295 foot-pounds of torque. Now, this one is equipped with the xDrive all-wheel drive system. What does that mean for getting off the line in a hurry? Well, 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty fast. The other thing that I want to point out here is the efficiencies, because a big part of BMW is the efficient dynamics. So things like the water pump, the oil pump, as well as the air conditioning compressor, it's all on demand as the loads require it. You should also know that the front structure of the 4 Series Coupe is actually 60% stronger than the outgoing 3 Series Coupe that it replaces. I just love saying coupe. But the other thing I want to point out here is that there's a lot going on when it comes to aerodynamics. Now, if you take a look at the front bumper, you're going to notice that there's what's called air curtains, these vertical slits on the sides of the bumper. Now, why exactly is that there? Well, it's designed to help flow the air around the tires. Now, that continues along the side of the vehicle. And with this particular M Sport edition, you're going to notice these air breathers. And at first, I was kind of hoping they had something to do with venting the brakes. But this is, again, all about shaping the air around the vehicle as it slices through it. Now, there's actually even more aerodynamics underneath. In fact, the entire underside of the vehicle has been sculpted with the necessary panels to make it as slippery as possible. And I've got some good news for you when it comes to the fuel economy that you could realize. I actually brought this car back from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan to Winnipeg, and in that 8-ish hour drive, I was able to get the vehicle to an average of 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers with the EcoPro setting. That's pretty good considering that the average speed was about 120 kilometers an hour. Now, coming back from Saskatoon, I had quite a bit of night driving, and I got to experience these new LED headlamps. And they actually have something that's very interesting called the high beam assistant. So let's say you're going down the road and you've got your high beams on. Well, depending on the oncoming vehicles and making sure that the headlamps here are not going to dazzle the other driver, it can actually decide if it's going to dumb down the brightness for both headlamps or just one, depending on the situation. The one thing that I will mention though is that when it comes to highway driving at night, you pretty much have to leave the vehicle in the high beam position, because the low beam setting for this particular setup, which is also adaptive, it's downright dim. Now when you take a look at the exterior of the BMW 435i Coupe, the one thing you're going to notice on this particular level is the sensory array on the bumpers. But the thing you need to know about these sensors is it's not just about the radar, it's also about cameras. In fact, you can actually get an around view with this system that can show you things like pedestrians that may be getting a little too close to you. In fact, when it's sensed properly, this car will actually bring on the braking if a pedestrian is going to be coming in the way. So that's definitely something that we like to see when it comes to technology. Now the thing about something in the luxury performance set that you need to remember is that just because it's got the price tag doesn't necessarily mean that it has the practicality. But I'd have to say that the 4 Series Coupe, it's bordering on very practical. Now, you probably know about different vehicle systems that exist to help you get into the hatches of things like SUVs. Well, guess what? There's a system very similar to it on this particular BMW. All you have to do is take your foot, put it underneath the bumper, and voila, trunk lid pops up. And when it comes to trunk lids, it's one of the nicest finished, and it also has underneath 2 areas where you can actually pull down the trunk lid and not touch it if for any reason you left your BMW dirty. Now I do like the fact that the hinges are well protected here, exceptionally wide and deep when it comes to the actual trunk opening. You can get some very large items into the boot. So let's start dismantling it, which is something we like to do on the road trip. Now the flooring material is actually quite robust. There is nothing here that feels like your typical chloroplast type of plasticky piece. You could actually put something on this quite heavy. And there's also these abilities here to lock in tie down, such as cargo nets and things of the like. Now when we take a look inside, you'll notice that what you get is an additional cargo area that keeps things away from pry bar eyes. And that would be this well, because we don't have a spare tire on this particular setup, and doesn't look as though we'd have enough room even if we wanted it. As you know, you probably are going to be getting a run flat type of tire whenever you're looking at BMW or Mini things. Now the rest of the trunk, you've actually got on the left-hand side here the parcel area to contain the cargo netting. There's also a landing pad there, but also on the inside you've got 12-volt DC power hookup. So that's handy to have, especially if you have to use 12-volt DC things. Now the one thing I noticed, and this is important as to why this trunk material here is as robust as it is that when you take a look inside, you're going to notice that there's a pretty important fuse bank on the inside, and well, let's just say I'm glad that we've got robust material here, because if it was a little thin and you put something a little too heavy back there, you could be in for a world of electrical hurt. Now let's take a look over on the right hand side and show you what's here. Now we don't have jacking tools since we are not expecting to be replacing a tire here, but what we do have is a portion for the tow hooks pieces that's located under here, like so. So that's all located underneath. And I never was good at puzzles. Okay. You have the webbing here, and that little hold down is kind of handy to have, because if you need to put things like your special highfalutin oil off to the side and not have it go and spill all over the fuse bank, that's definitely there on purpose. I also noticed on the inside of the trunk lid just ahead that you actually have some very robust tie downs. So if you needed to keep things from sliding around, that'll do the job for you. Now, to release the seat backs for the BMW 4 Series Coupe, you've got the releases here. But what you've also got in the trunk to help keep things from rolling around is these handy hooks here. And that looks as though it could definitely hang onto your bag from Whole Foods. Now, have you noticed something about the pass-through from the trunk into the passenger area? It's actually quite square. And unlike a lot of vehicles in the segment, you're going to notice that many of their suspension systems actually intrude into the sides. And that's why you get some of these strange shapes when you're looking through this particular view. Now, you'll notice that the seat backs fold quite flat for a coupe in this class. So the good news is that if you're taking long trips or picking up something special and large, you'd be surprised how much you can jam in the boot of a 435. Now, I know what you're saying to yourself, Michael Clark, this whole idea of actually making a coupe my daily driver seems fantastic. But there's only one problem, and that's actually putting people in the back seat that don't have to be folded and are actually still going to be your friends after you do. Well, BMW has thought about that in a big way, and it's not a case of folding or flipping things, it's a case of pressing a button. And what we've got here is the handy fore and aft for the entry into the rear seat. So let's show you just how much room we're talking about when you press this button. Now, the other thing that you'll notice here is that the front seat belts are not interfering in any way. You don't have to crawl underneath them or anything like that. So this is the maximum amount of travel, and as is the tradition on the road trip, it's time to get in. Okay, nothing hurts, that's good. Okay, well, let's tell you about the backseat experience in the BMW 435i Coupe. Well, the first thing that I'm going to have to mention is that the daylight opening actually is anything but claustrophobic. That's actually a window where not only can you look out of, but you can be seen, and that's definitely important when you're in the luxury performance class. Let's also point out that there's exceptional soft touch points where you need them to be. So the armrests, everything here, the fold down center armrest. And the one thing we notice is that it would have been nice to have a 20% pass through in the center, but we actually don't have that with this particular model for whatever reason. The one thing that I also noticed here is that the seats are sculpted. It's almost like having your own bucket seat, if you will, in the rear. So they haven't decided to figure out if they could put a fifth person in here, because that would not be a very happy fifth person. Now, the headliner is not scuffing what little hair I have left. So for the 5/8 set, there's definitely enough room back here. We also have the coat hooks here that flip around like so. That is a neat, slick piece. And the other thing that I have to mention is the angle of the seat and the amount of lumbar support here. The way that the bottom of the seat cushion is pretty much putting you into a very neutral position. So it's going to be very comfortable for the long haul tours. Now, in the back, you've also got the mesh pockets for the seat backs, which, well, they look good until you actually start putting things into them and start getting a little stretched out. I should also point out here on the headrests that what you can actually do with them for additional comfort up front is that you can actually tilt them. So depending on what shape your noggin's in, you can get it just right with these particular front seats. Now, you'll notice on the Coupe that we don't have framed doors. We have these beautiful frameless doors. They look absolutely stunning. But the other thing I want to point out here is that our exterior rear view mirrors, they are, well, quite aerodynamic in the way that they've been put onto the body. And I'm kind of wondering when BMW may consider actually getting away from this A-pillar arrangement and actually putting them on the door. But there is exterior LED repeaters to let other drivers and pedestrians know what you're up to. Now, the seating, well, let's just say I got to get in to show you exactly how good it is. Now, these particular seats here, ooh. Okay, let's hit the position that isn't Brian and bring them forward. Okay, that's the way I like it. Now, the one thing you'll notice on the seats is that you have two memory positions, one for Mike, one for Brian. But what you also have here is the abilities to adjust the bolsters. You can get the seats on this particular BMW to hug you like a long-lost aunt. Now, the other thing that happens here with the seat belts is once you've got everything closed, they'll actually come to you. There's these special seat belt things, and they work, of course, like most things in a BMW, in a wonderful whirl of electro, and it pushes the belt towards you. Once you've got the belt on, it will retract. So very BMW. Now let's talk about the driver's position, and with this particular one, with the M Sport package, you do get the M Sport wheel, proper dead pedal. Everything here is designed for the serious driver. I mean, the abilities here for heel and toe shifting, if you're into that sort of thing, very capable. Excellent thumb locators on the steering wheel. You do have a manual tilt and telescope. Seemed a little bit of a miss. I'd like to have a power at this particular level for the price. But what you do have is a heated steering wheel, and it's right toasty. Now, the other thing that you'll notice with the headlamp array is that you actually do have an auto setting. You have your switchery below for things such as the forward collision warning as well as the lane keeping systems. But the other thing that you need to remember about the way that the car is laid out for the drivers, there's not a bad gauge viewing area in the place. And this particular car also has the heads-up display. And you can keep that as unpopulated or include other information such as navigation directions. The rest of the controls inside the BMW 435i, well, it's all exceptionally well laid out and quite a marriage of different types of textures and finishes and feel. You'll notice that we've got a very large display up top, which can be manipulated by the xDrive controller. I wanted to point out something else that when you think about vehicles in this class, I sometimes think about Porsche and how they hate to even admit that they have cup holders. Well, it appears as though BMW is the same way, because the two front cup holders here, well, you can actually use this plug-in tray and it's like they never happened. Now, ahead of that, and something I always wonder about when it comes to most things German, is that there's always seeming to be a smoker's package for some reason. What a way to ruin an interior. Oh, let's talk about the xDrive controller. Now, it controls things such as your audio settings, but believe me, it gets even more involved here, because you've actually got on this particular vehicle, and believe me, I was as completely blown away as a lot of people were when I showed it to them, the abilities to actually go online. And when we get into the office, you also have the abilities to get your emails read to you. Now, it sounds a little truncated, but the fact is that any email that's being read to you is better than the one that you're reading on your smartphone while you're driving. Now, the way that it's placed here, the xDrive controller, it's a very intuitive feel, and you're actually able to easily scan through and plug in letters and numbers and all that sort of thing, depending on what you're trying to do with it. But what you can also do with this, and this is wild, is that this is actually a touch screen. But what it does is it allows you to actually spell out letters. So if you're looking for something particular, you can actually start spelling it out on the screen. It looks a little bit like an Etch-a-Sketch, and we'll probably send you off to some form of penmanship school right away. I have the hardest time doing O's for some reason, so I tend to actually search for them with the xDrive controller as opposed to trying to write them out. Now, up top, you've got the abilities for the sunroof as well as the SOS system. Very good lighting as well as lighting for the vanity mirrors. And I have to admit, when it comes to the use of the Bluetooth systems and the natural voice quality that you get inside the vehicle, it really does become an office environment in the sense that things are clear, things never sound disembodied, and let's face it, the last thing you want to be doing when you're using a Bluetooth system is be distracted. Watch The Road Trip on Winnipeg Shaw TV and also on YouTube at youtube.com/user/roadtriprides. And tune in to The Road Trip on 680 CJOB every Saturday from 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. Central. And you can listen online at cjob.com. This particular 435i xDrive Coupe starts at $55,600 in Canada, though the way we have it spec'd out here with all of the additional things such as the connected drive capabilities gives us an MSRP of $63,850. And I have to admit, for the amount of practicality that exists within this particular coupe, that's a price worth paying. Because when you consider the fact that the xDrive system is, as I've mentioned before, designed to make even an auto journalist a good driver, think about what it's going to do for the novice. And there's nothing worse than getting into a vehicle like this and finding out at the wrong possible moment that getting to 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds is unwieldy. Well, you're not going to experience that in this car at all. It's going to make an okay driver a really good driver, and it's going to make a good driver an exceptional driver. Now remember, you can get it in the 428 configuration if you're into 2-liter turbo 4s. The only thing that I have a problem with when it comes to that particular engine is the note. It just sounds wrong, very un-BMW. That's why we like this particular inline 6 version, and I have to admit, it would be my particular choice. There is the possibility, though, that you could get into something like this without the xDrive, and remembering that there's still going to be a lot of think underneath in the chassis that's going to keep you on the straight and narrow. Now, if you've got thoughts, feelings, or questions about anything automotive, I'm here to help. Send an email to steelbeltedmind@gmail.com. For The Road Trip, I'm Michael Clark. Keep the shiny side up and the rubber side down. You know, washing a car can be a real chore, and a costly one at that. In response, Nissan in Europe has begun tests on innovative paint technology that repels mud, rain, and everyday dirt, meaning drivers may never have to clean their car again. The specially engineered super hydrophobic and oleophobic paint, which repels water and oils, has been applied to an all-new European market Nissan Note to create the world's first self-cleaning car. Nissan is the first car maker to apply the technology, called Ultra Ever Dry, on automotive bodywork. By creating a protective layer of air between the paint and environment, it effectively stops standing water and road spray from creating dirty marks on the car's surface. Diesel enthusiasts around the world have determined that the 2014 Chevrolet Cruze Diesel is the top diesel car of the year, and Chevrolet is the top diesel manufacturer of 2014. Now let's tell you a little bit how this award came to be, because it comes from the world's leading publication geared towards automotive enthusiasts interested in diesel-powered automobiles. Now you can check out the Diesel Driver at thedieseldriver.com. But here's how it all came to be. 11,030 votes were cast. The Cruze finished with 59.3% of the vote. And when you take a look at who they beat out, you really start to realize that the people that you thought were the only people to go to for diesel engines have got some explaining to do. Audi was left out, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, even Volkswagen. Now let's talk about the efficiency. In Canada, you could be getting about 4.2 liters per 100 kilometers highway with the 2-liter clean turbo diesel-powered Cruise. And that's better than any non-hybrid or gasoline passenger car in North America. Now, Chevrolet recently revealed the 2015 Cruise at the New York International Auto Show, and they've kicked up the exterior styling a little bit, plus greater connectivity, including new text message alerts, Apple Siri integration, and OnStar 4G LTE with available Wi-Fi hotspot. Now add in that diesel powertrain and, well, you can spend a whole lot more money on social media. The Cruise Diesel features a globally designed powertrain. Engineers at GM's Diesel Center of Excellence in Torino, Italy, work daily with their counterparts in Pontiac, Michigan to develop a world-class engine that delivers outstanding fuel efficiency and torque while providing a smooth, quiet ride. In addition, GM engineers in Germany are supporting the program by developing the accessory drive, acoustic cover, and other specialized components. You know, the road trip was pretty excited when we first saw the images of the Honda Urban SUV concept. Well, we've got some good news. Much of what you see here is going to make its way into the 2015 Honda HR-V. Now, they've just released the first photos and we've got them for you here, but it's built on the same global compact platform that underpins the Honda Fit. Now, it's going to have a very versatile and spacious interior, and yes, the magic seat, which you've loved on the Honda Fit, it's going to be there too, allowing for multiple seating configurations and the ability to fold the second row completely flat for added cargo space. We look forward to seeing it this winter in Canada.
Ford came to us when they were going to introduce the amazing new Transit van and said, we want to build the ultimate luxury transportation. And with Galpin's history, going back to really the birthplace of the conversion van, it seemed like a natural fit for Ford and Galpin to come together and make the ultimate transit van.
When we were working on the launch of the 2015 Transit, one of the key things that we wanted to highlight, not only to people that might be interested in a vehicle like the Transit Skyliner, was really the unlimited amount of choice we're going to offer to the North American public. Vans, wagons, chassis cabs, cutaways. Bottom line, we're offering choice that the North American customer has never had in a van.
The technology in the Skyliner is one of a kind. Everything is custom, one-off, handmade, hand-laid fiberglass. All the aluminum is top-notch, and we even have this wood floor that, I mean, it's the most amazing thing you've ever seen before in your life.
In the North American van market, the majority of the business are commercial vans, work vans, plumbers, contractors. Those are custom vans too. They're just custom with, racks and bins that let them hold their tools and the parts and whatever else they need. This custom van is the ultimate VIP limo.
What Ford really wanted was, what could be the ultimate transit van? What could be the future of luxury transportation? And that's what we tried to create here with the Skyliner.
And what the team here has really developed and delivered is an audio-visual experience that I have never seen in the automotive industry, and I think it's really going to catch people by surprise.